Hey all, welcome to my channel today. Thank you for watching my watching my video and my channels, or thank you for watching my videos in my channel. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. Uh, Today's topic is basically Apache Druid. It's just going to be a quick, brief overview. I could go into in depth about it in a much later video if you want me to. If you do, leave a comment and let me know, and I'll go into it and set something up for that and actually create some sort of slide decks and such for you in that situation. Um, but Apache Druid. Now, what is Apache Druid? It's kind of a real-time analytics database. It was supposed to be sort of like an OLAP to replace an OLAP cube in a ways for what was meant for large data sets, specifically in the Hadoop world at that time, MapReduce and Hadoop or HDFS and such. So it's supposed to allow you to like slice and dice essentially very quickly with OLAP queries. Now, one of the things is basically with Apache Druid is it was built way back when, I think, out of Yahoo. I can't remember exactly who was the main contributor that open sourced it. But I mean, one of the things some of the benefits of Apache Druid honestly are that it can ingest a lot of data and from various data sources like Kafka, Kinesis, S3 buckets, and more in real time or in batch mode, but more specifically real time more than anything else. It can query data with low latency and high concurrency using SQL, JSON over HTTP. Yeah, JSON over HTTP basically. Sorry, sometimes I'm going by memory. If you haven't noticed in my videos and channels, I go purely off of memory, off the cuff. In this case, this is one of those things where Apache Druid, somebody asked me about it, and I decided to talk about it. All right, in case, another benefit basically about Apache Druid. One of the other benefits is it can scale horizontal. That's one of the nice things about it, and it provides sort of a HA environment or HA high availability with very minimal single point of failures. It can handle, I guess, complex queries. Sort of like that's based on time-based aggregations. Now, time-based meaning like month, day, rolling it up to the month or the day or such, and top K histograms and such. Can handle a lot of different data types. I'll admit that, like strings, numbers, booleans, timestamps, and complex types like variants or array types. And I mean, the other aspect is it's supposedly fast query performance, but that's based on the number of nodes that you create at that point too, right? And it has that ability of sort of a flexible data model where it can handle both structured and unstructured data. I mean, it's more a case of like column stores more than anything else. That's really what it comes down to. But it can handle a wide range of data types, as I mentioned, basically. Handles a lot, has a rich querying capability too, which is it supports a wide range of query types, beside aggregations like filtering and groupings, of course, but similar to SQL, basically, anyways, in that aspect. Now, those are some of the benefits, very quick benefits. Some of the challenges, though, are much more different, though. One of the big things is it does require a timestamp for all data types, especially event-oriented data. That's what it's geared towards more than anything else. Actually, I would say that Druid is more geared towards event-oriented data. So that's why, not time series, but event-oriented with the timestamp. It does not support, in this case, it's not a transactional database, mind you. It's not a transactional database, so it does not support transactions, updates, deletes, or such on existing data. It's more of like you're just adding data and that's it, no updates at all. You'll have to go back and go in and ingest the data more than anything else. It does, because it's supposed to be supposedly a columnar. Columnars are supposed to be much more less space intensive, or doesn't consume as much disk space. But this is one of the columnars that actually takes up a lot more space than normal columnars does. And it's because of the format it's stored in, and as well as the index that it's done at that point as well too. And the other factor is maintenance can be a pain in the butt too. I mean, it's very complex to set up, and it's if you're not familiar with the Hadoop ecosystem for that matter, because like Druid works really well in the Hadoop environment and sort of S3 or any distributed environment, more than anything else Hadoop. It's very complex to set up in that aspect. Even though the data model is flexible, even though it's flexible, it's not really suitable for those that where there are use cases that have like very very complex joins or transactions, but moreover complex joins more than anything else. There are other factors as well too, like any other relational databases that are out there nowadays, or in the past anyways. It requires a lot of maintenance for like optimal performance, which does take up time. I mean, like if you're from the Oracle world, SQL Server world, or the Postgres world, or MySQL world, a lot of maintenance is done. Basically, you have to always constantly monitor it, check it to make sure what query performance issues or whatever it may be and such. And there's also query performance tuning as well too, which I brought up, and that could be cause of data volume itself. I mean, it's supposed to handle large data volumes, but not as much large data sets. The query can be very complex. If it's really complex and complex joins itself, Druid would fail miserably. And also the other factors, let's not forget, like the other aspect is like inadvertent queries as well too, or inefficient queries, I should say. The other aspect as well too is like any other data store. I mean, you got data security. That's a big factor too. Data security is one thing that it's kind of a pain in the butt to do, but it's not that really easy to enforce. Put it that way. There's also I don't know. I'm trying to think. Yeah, I would say that those are pretty much a lot of the challenges for it right now. That's off the top of my head. Mind you, I do have some bullet points here that I just really quick up as that point too. Now, the one thing is comparing it to other databases though, it does differ in quite a few things, specifically some OLAP databases for that matter. It handles real-time data for ingestion and querying at scale. Especially if your use case is basically requiring sub-second responses, then especially with for queries, especially on large data sets, it works really well at this point. The other aspect is like it's got that flexible data model basically. Like nowadays, most of the data stores out there are flexible in the data model aspect more than anything else. Some of the query types that it supports isn't so outdated, but it's to the point where Druid is kind of falling behind at that point as well too. So that's another aspect as well too. But more often than not, usually Druid where it's where it really thrives on is for real time data ingestion more than anything else. But like more than anything else, like I said, it's like real time analytics. That's kind of the slicing and dicing with the OLAP queues, and that's what OLAP queues were. This is kind of a case of replacing the OLAP queue. And I want to say it's got it's definitely open source because it's Apache. It's open source. One of the drawbacks though for it is that with the fact that it's open source, you're based on a community at that point. Not that many people that I know of use it, to be honest. Honestly, if I had a choice, if you want to be cloud agnostic, if it's on a cloud-based environment and you want to be cloud agnostic, then go the Snowflake route. That makes more sense more than anything else, to be quite honest. However, if it's a case where you're on-prem, honestly, you might go the route of either Apache Drill or PrestoDB more than anything else. I mean, PrestoDB, most people nowadays just use Druid. PrestoDB as a top layer to query against Druid with other data stores at that point as well too. But I mean, some of the use cases that you use it for is like, user behavior analytics more than anything else, network performance monitoring. But honestly, I would kind of use, Prometheus and Grafana and such. Fraud detection is one aspect, which I know that's why I think it was arisen as a result from Yahoo, I believe, that built it. And then, of course, some BI aspects as well, too. Reporting tools can read off of it in other ways. But more often now, it's the biggest thing is IoT analytics. That's a big thing, especially for the Internet of Things. This is where Druid does thrive on in that aspect. But like I said, it's more of a case where if I had my choice, I would go the go the Snowflake route if you want to be cloud agnostic. If you want to go on-prem, then I would maybe stick with Druid, but more often than not, I would just probably look what the other data stores are out there. There are plenty of data stores out there at this point right now. Drill, I think, is kind of, I don't want to say it's a dying breed, but it's still sufficient enough if you work it with other technologies or incorporate it with other technologies like PrestoDB or Apache Druid for that matter. A little bit of Hive as well too. Now, if you're going to cloud route, I don't think it makes sense to use these things on the cloud environment, depending on the size of the data. If you have tons of like terabytes of data, Joe works in an aspect where if you need to really read it in real time very quickly, you would say, oh, why not just use Kafka? Well, those are not entirely those are event driven, but it's still a case where like it's still event driven data that you need to be stored in some data store that needs some sort of dashboard environment basically, and that's where Druid does come in and works really well at that aspect from that perspective anyways. Yeah, I mean, honestly, I mean, I would say PrestoDB and Drill do work together. Druid works really well together. But of course, this is not an HDFS environment. If you have an HDFS environment, then yes, by all means, go forward with this. I mean, some could say, oh, you could use Impala and Drill. I mean, Druid. Sorry, Impala and Druid. I'm sorry, I'm always confusing Drill and Druid constantly, or mixing it up. When in reality, Druid is the OLAP environment. Drill is sort of the query engine similar to PrestoDB. And then Impala, of course, as well too. So either one of those three against Druid works really well as well too, to be honest with you. The one thing is those, like I said, complex queries, complex joins, it doesn't really, more specifically complex joins, to be honest, it doesn't really do well with that in that aspect. But that's where I think you put Presto on top of it, then it works in that perspective. Because one of the things is you getting the raw data from there, doing the filtration, and then doing the filtration on top of Presto at that point, and that works in that perspective as well too. Would I build a data layer on top of Druid? No. Honestly, if I had a choice, I would probably go the route of maybe Cassandra. Honestly, if you're going to on-prem, Cassandra, or maybe, a little bit maybe Postgres as well too. You couldn't do the relational database aspect because nowadays, with the data aspects of storing the data, is much more efficient in Postgres, and it's the fact that you could add extensions to it as well too is even in itself much better at that point as well too. Are there such things as OLAP cubes on top of Postgres? That's a good question, honestly. There are some. I mean, you could use like it doesn't really support MDX queries per se. There are people that are building extensions on top of it, which you can use. I don't know a lot of them, to be honest with you. I haven't used a lot of those in a while. I mean, honestly, it's been so long since I've used it. Last one I used was it OrientDB? No, OrientDB was graphic database. I forgot what it was. But yeah, in any case, I don't know. Honestly, like I said, Druid, depending on your use case and your means are, it might work really well with you, but it won't work right out of the box with you, and it won't work to the point like you're gonna try to pigeonhole into one thing. It's depending on that use case. Druid might work really well with other tool sets in place as well too. I mean, Druid can read from Kafka, which is good. So I would like explore that option. Don't forget about it and look at it. Now, if you need me to go a little bit more in depth and detail with Druid, let me know in the comments, and I will talk a little bit more in depth. I could actually do a lot more comparison between Druid, Presto, Snowflake, Synapse, Redshift. I don't know. There's so many out there, like Vertica as well, etc. Basically, but in any case, I'll just leave it at that. Again, please leave a comment and let me know what you think about it. If you want me to know more, let me know if I should elaborate more, or was this a little bit confusing. There are plenty of documents out there as well too. The Druid.io site is really good enough as well too with the documentation when it comes to that. But outside of that, I'll just leave it at that. Again, if you are watching this video, I ask you please subscribe. I do post up some videos of tech related stuff as well too. Not as in depth, but eventually, if there is a request for in-depth stuff, I will. One of my videos, I actually did a comparison between Synapse, Redshift, and Snowflake. Someone did comment, I was like, hey, some of the ETL2s and some more use cases important benchmarking performance metrics. I'll probably get that in place too as well down the line. But outside of that, I'll leave it at that. unfiltered, unedited, and unrehearsed. Until next time.